Okay, so are you curious about hydrogen water?
Yeah.
Like all this buzz about it, antioxidants, energy boosts, even helping with diabetes?
Yeah, it's everywhere these days.
You've sent over a fascinating mix of research for our deep dive. We've got scientific studies, even a blog post praising hydrogen water, and a TikTok video showing off a hydrogen water bottle.
Wow.
Let's dive into all this and figure out what the science really says.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area to explore. There's definitely hype out there, but we're going to stick to the facts and see what we can uncover about hydrogen water's true potential.
Love it. First off, what is hydrogen water? It sounds kind of futuristic.
Simpler than it sounds. Basically, water infused with extra hydrogen gas, specifically molecular hydrogen, H2.
Wait, isn't water already H2O? Why add more hydrogen?
That's where it gets interesting. It's the molecular hydrogen that makes all the difference.
Right.
This type of hydrogen is incredibly tiny, so tiny it can easily slip into our cells.
Oh, wow.
And what's really fascinating is it acts as a selective antioxidant.
Selective antioxidant. What does that even mean?
It means it targets and neutralizes harmful free radicals in our bodies,
Okay.
while leaving the beneficial ones untouched. It's like a smart missile, zeroing in on the troublemakers, protecting the good guys.
That makes sense. This blog post claims some pretty impressive benefits for hydrogen water. Reduced inflammation, more energy, better athletic recovery, and even glowing skin. Is this too good to be true? Or is there some science behind this?
Well, some of these claims do have some scientific backing, but it's important to be cautious. The research on hydrogen water is still relatively new, so we need more large-scale, long-term studies to confirm these benefits and understand the long-term effects.
So while there's some promising potential, we need to be realistic. Let's dive into some research. I noticed that several studies focused on hydrogen water's effects on oxidative stress and diabetes. Can you walk us through those findings?
Absolutely. These studies showed that hydrogen-rich water was linked to a decrease in markers of oxidative stress in individuals with type 2 diabetes and impaired glucose tolerance.
So it's not just theoretical. There's evidence it can make a difference for people dealing with these conditions. What else did the studies find?
One study even observed that hydrogen-rich water helped normalize glucose tolerance in some participants.
Yeah.
And in animal studies, it's been linked to improvements in insulin levels and a reduction in cell damage in the pancreas.
Okay, so we're seeing potential benefits for both managing oxidative stress and potentially improving blood sugar control. Now, how does hydrogen water stack up against existing treatments for these conditions?
That's a key question. One study compared hydrogen-oxygen therapy to oxygen-only therapy for individuals experiencing a COPD flare-up.
All right.
And the group receiving hydrogen saw more significant improvements in their symptoms.
Interesting.
Another study even found that hydrogen water's effects on insulin were comparable to those of metformin, a commonly prescribed medication for diabetes.
Hold on. Are you saying that drinking hydrogen water could potentially have similar benefits to taking metformin?
That's what the research suggests. But it's essential to remember that this doesn't mean hydrogen water is a replacement for conventional treatments. More research is needed to confirm these findings and understand the long-term implications.
Right. We don't want to jump to any conclusions.
Yes.
Speaking of jumping on trends, you sent over a TikTok video promoting a hydrogen water bottle. How do these bottles even work, and how can we be sure the hydrogen concentration is enough to have any real effect?
Most hydrogen water is created by infusing regular water with hydrogen gas using special machines or tablets.
Okay.
The concentration can vary depending on the method, so it's crucial to choose reputable brands and look for products that clearly state their hydrogen levels.
So there's a lot to consider when it comes to actually getting your hands on hydrogen water. It sounds like there's still some uncertainty surrounding the optimal dosage and concentration for therapeutic effects.
You're absolutely right. It's still early days in the world of hydrogen water. There's a lot more research to be done before we can make any definitive claims.
That's a great point. We've covered a lot already. From the science behind hydrogen water to its potential benefits and how it compares to other treatments. But there's still a lot more to explore. What's up next in our hydrogen water deep dive?
Well, we've talked about the general findings of some studies, but I think it'd be helpful to take a closer look at a few specific studies. We can delve deeper into their methodologies and what the results really suggest about the potential of hydrogen water.
All right, let's do it. I'm ready to get into the nitty-gritty of the research and see what we can uncover.
Let's start with that pilot study we mentioned, the one that looked at hydrogen water and oxygen saturation in patients with chronic lung disease. What stood out to you from that one?
I was really surprised that something as simple as drinking hydrogen water could actually improve oxygen uptake. For someone struggling with a chronic lung condition, that's a game changer. Tell me more about what he did in that study.
This study focused on 10 patients with chronic lung diseases like COPD, asthma, and even tuberculosis of the lung. They were given high concentration, hydrogen-rich water for 4 weeks, using those hydrogen-producing tablets we discussed earlier.
So just by adding these tablets to their water for a month, they saw real improvements.
That's right. The researchers found that the hydrogen-rich water led to a significant increase in the patient's oxygen saturation. They also observed a decrease in markers of oxidative stress and an increase in things like vitamin E and nitrite levels.
Okay, that makes sense. We've talked about hydrogen's antioxidant properties, so it's not surprising that it would have a positive impact on oxidative stress. But what about the increase in oxygen saturation? How does hydrogen water actually help people breathe easier?
It's not entirely clear yet, but there are a few theories. One possibility is that hydrogen helps reduce inflammation in the airways, making it easier for oxygen to get into the bloodstream. Another theory is that it might improve the function of the mitochondria, the powerhouses of our cells, which could lead to more efficient oxygen utilization.
Interesting. So it's not just masking the symptoms. It might be addressing some of the underlying causes of breathing difficulties. Did this study look at anything beyond oxygen levels and oxidative stress?
Yeah, they also noted that the patients seemed to tolerate physical activity better after the 4 weeks of hydrogen water. They reported an increase in exercise tolerance and a decrease in hypoxia, which is basically oxygen deprivation. It even seemed to delay their need for supplemental oxygen therapy.
So not only were they breathing easier at rest, but they were also able to be more active without feeling as winded. That's pretty remarkable.
It definitely suggests that hydrogen water could have a significant impact on the quality of life for individuals with chronic lung diseases. Now let's switch gears and talk about that randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled crossover study that looked at type 2 diabetes and impaired glucose tolerance. Remember that one?
Of course. That study design is considered the gold standard for research, right? It minimizes bias and helps ensure that the results are actually due to the intervention being studied.
Exactly. And this particular study involved 30 patients with type 2 diabetes who were managing their conditions through diet and exercise, and 6 patients with impaired glucose tolerance. The participants drank either 900 milliliters of hydrogen-rich water or placebo water every day for 8 weeks. And then they switched groups after a washout period.
Clever setup. So they were really trying to isolate the effects of hydrogen water separate from any lifestyle changes.
Right.
What were the key takeaways?
They found some interesting results related to lipid and glucose metabolism. For instance, drinking hydrogen-rich water was associated with significant decreases in modified LDL cholesterol, the bad kind that contributes to plaque buildup in arteries.
So potential heart health benefits as well. It was getting better and better.
And there's more. They also observed a decrease in small, dense LDL, another type of cholesterol that's considered particularly harmful for cardiovascular health. These smaller particles are more likely to penetrate the artery walls and contribute to plaque formation.
I see. So by reducing both modified LDL and small dense LDL, hydrogen water might offer a two-pronged approach to protecting its heart disease. What other findings stood out to you?
Well, the hydrogen-rich water also led to a decrease in urinary 8-isoprosteins, which are markers of oxidative stress. Lower levels suggest that the hydrogen water might be helping to protect against cellular damage.
So we're seeing potential benefits across the board: better blood sugar control, improved cholesterol levels, and reduced oxidative stress. It seems like hydrogen water could be a powerful tool for improving overall metabolic health and reducing the risk of chronic diseases.
That's what the evidence suggests. Now let's shift our focus to that animal study we discussed earlier, the one that looked at hydrogen-rich water and diabetes in rats. Remember they used streptozotocin to induce diabetes in the rats?
Yes, that chemical specifically targets the insulin-producing cells in the pancreas, creating a model of diabetes for researchers to study. What was the role of hydrogen water in this study?
They divided 30 male rats into 5 groups. A normal control group, a group of diabetic rats, a group treated with metformin, a group treated with both metformin and hydrogen-rich water, and a group treated only with hydrogen-rich water.
Interesting. So it sounds like they wanted to see how the effects of hydrogen water compared to those of metformin, a commonly prescribed diabetes medication. What did they observe?
The study found that treatment with hydrogen water actually increased the levels of insulin and insulin receptors in the diabetic rats. It also elevated SOD levels, superoxide dismutase, an important antioxidant enzyme in both their blood and liver.
So it's supporting the idea that hydrogen water could have a positive impact on insulin function and protect against the harmful effects of oxidative stress.
Are there any other key takeaways from the study?
Well, we've explored a lot of research on hydrogen water and its potential benefits. From what I'm gathering, it seems like there's a lot of promise, especially with things like oxidative stress, diabetes, and even lung health.
Absolutely.
It's all very intriguing, but I'm sure our listeners are wondering, where do we go from here?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? While the research is certainly promising, we need to remember it's still early days.
Right.
We need more extensive research, longer-term studies, and investigations into optimal dosages before we can make any definitive conclusions about hydrogen water's true impact.
So a healthy dose of skepticism is still warranted.
Absolutely.
It's not a magic bullet or a cure-all. But let's play devil's advocate for a moment.
Mhm.
Assuming future research confirms these benefits, what are the potential implications? This blog post mentions hydrogen water, potentially helping with everything from fatigue to brain fog. It seems like the possibilities are vast.
And that ties back to the proposed mechanisms we've been discussing.
Right.
If hydrogen water truly acts as this potent selective antioxidant, it stands to reason that it could have widespread effects on cellular health throughout the body.
Yeah.
We've already seen hints of this in the studies we've looked at.
One study even suggested that hydrogen water might be beneficial for people experiencing long COVID symptoms, which is really interesting.
Exactly. There's growing interest in its potential to help with the lingering fatigue and inflammation that some individuals experience after a COVID-19 infection. It's definitely an area that warrants further investigation.
It is pretty remarkable to think that something as simple as adding hydrogen to water could have such far-reaching effects. We're talking about potentially impacting energy levels, athletic performance, chronic diseases, maybe even cognitive function. That's pretty mind-blowing.
It's certainly a fascinating field of research, and the more we learn, the more questions seem to arise. But that's a good thing.
Right.
It means there's still so much to explore and discover.
Okay, so for someone listening to all of this, who's intrigued by the potential of hydrogen water, but not quite sure what to do next, what would you suggest?
Stay curious, keep an eye on the research as it evolves, and if you're considering trying hydrogen water, definitely talk to your healthcare provider to make sure it's appropriate for you and your individual circumstances.
Excellent advice. It sounds like the main takeaway here is that while we shouldn't jump on the hydrogen water bandwagon just yet, the research is definitely intriguing and the potential benefits are worth exploring further.
Precisely. We've just dipped our toes into the world of hydrogen water today, but it's clear that there's a lot more to learn.
And on that note, I think we've reached the bottom of our hydrogen water deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this fascinating exploration of the science and potential of hydrogen water.
Of course, thanks for having me.
We've covered a lot of ground, and hopefully you've come away with a better understanding of what we know so far and what questions remain to be answered.
Absolutely.
Until next time, stay hydrated, stay curious, and as always, keep asking those deep dive questions.